Alright, all the way from United Kingdom, David Wise, Kevin Bayliss, please give a warm welcome.
I'm just going to try and kill it. 2 seconds.
Who's humming? Everybody having a good show? Everybody spent some money? Right, what's the most expensive thing anybody's bought? What game? How much did you spend on your game? How much did you spend? £25. That's good going. So like 20 years ago that would have been like £2.50 maybe, so it stopped. Cool. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the 30 years that we've been involved in video games. But I think we're going to get an introduction from Martin first, a little talk again.
Yes, so they're going to first a bit, we're going to have a Q&A afterwards. First, Kevin and David are going to show some things, talk a bit. They both worked at Rare for many years. Almost 20 years? Over 20 years?
No, I didn't quite make 20 years, almost 20 years. That's about 1 month short.
So you played Cobra Triangle in a few? Battletoads? Donkey Kong Country? Well, these are gentlemen that created these. How about adding the Zhiyun?
So what we're going to do, obviously we used to work for Rare in the UK, so we're just going to shunter on. I'm used to doing these primarily as a music thing, so the first half we'll just talk about music, Kevin I'm sure will interject, and then we'll talk about graphics afterwards. I'm speaking first because I was actually at Rare about 6 months before Kev was, so...
Which is why he has no hair.
Exactly.
Another 6 months it will all be gone.
Yeah. So, a lot of people ask me, how did I get my job at Rare? So, I used to work in this music shop. This music shop is in deepest Leicester. It's not the most salubrious place in the world. But on that second floor, that's where I worked. I was selling drums. So I left home, I got my own flat, and I was playing in the band, playing drums, and in the day I was selling drums as well. It was a bit of a dead-end job. So one day, these chaps walked in and they had, they were from Yamaha, they had this Yamaha CX5 computer, and they were convinced that computers were the way forward. And they needed somebody to sell their computer. No one was really interested. They offered me an extra day off if I took it home and worked out how to use it. So for several weeks, I was having an extra day off, because nursing a hangover, as one does. But I did actually work out how to use this Yamaha CX5. So I was in the music shop, I connected this computer, looked at lots of synths, drum machines, that kind of stuff. And then one day, these two gentlemen came into the shop and they wanted a demonstration. It was quite easy to sell the computer, but these two gentlemen, they were asking lots of questions. It wasn't easy. I played them things like Go West, We Close Our Eyes from the 80s. Obviously, you know, your parents are probably too young to remember that. But we can, and Duran Duran, lots of other 80s stuff, and I got it all set up so everybody could listen to it, and they were listening along, and I ran out of numbers eventually after about half an hour. And they said, do you have any more songs we can listen to? So I apologised, and I said, well, I've only got 2 songs here that they're my songs, I've programmed in, you're welcome to listen to if you want. So they said, yes, I played them. And one gentleman looked at the other and he said, Monsters. And I was a bit confused. I said, is that good or bad? Monsters, what does that mean? He said, oh, we've got something that needs some music for Monsters. I was a bit bemused. He said, oh, have you got an office? And I was convinced that I'd sold yet another thing. So I took them up to the office, I got the forms out for the finance, they were going to buy yet another computer and all this gear that I've just shown them on finance. And they said, well, we're going to have a computer, we're going to have the 2 synths, we're going to have the drum machine, and we're going to have that computer. But we want you as well. How much do you want to come and work at our company? So, I mean, I was in San Francisco last week, and my breakfast in the mornings cost more than I used to earn per week when I worked at this music shop. So, I was playing in an 80s band at the time. If anyone's seen this film, it's called The Wedding Singer. That was my band. We were a clone of that band. We looked just as bad. In fact, here I am in the 1980s. As you can see, time has not been kind. However, yes, this is an early shot from the games machine. Obviously, there's some young man in the middle called David Wise. And at the end, we've got Kev. This young man here is just off the photo at the moment. But if we press play, you'll see it. There's obviously me. We've got stampers there on this side. And there he is, Kev.
2 weeks of Rare Limited here. I'm actually trying to avoid stepping in some doggy do.
Now, the other point as well is, I think I was about 19 years old, maybe 18, and Kev, bless him, was 16 years old. Yeah, just turned 16. I didn't like
Haven't changed a bit.
Didn't like treading in dog poo either, which is understandable. So here's the machine. That is the Yamaha CX-5. That is what launched my career over 2 years ago now. These are the other items that the gentleman called Tim and Chris Stamper, who happen to own Rare, bought. We bought this. This is a sequence. It's like a computer that plays music. That was the Core Poly 800, Juno 2, and I sampled both of those synths. You'll hear them in the Donkey Kong stuff. We'll get to that later. And the R8 drum machine. I love that machine. Even though I was a drummer, I couldn't keep time. This could, so I swapped my drumming skills for programming skills. So, let's go back to when I first started there. They bought all of this equipment, and it sounded great. And I started working there. I'd been there for 3 weeks playing Mario. They said, can you play Mario for 3 weeks? So I did, and then they said, right, I want you to spend the next 3 weeks just coming up with some tunes for a video game. I thought, yeah, I can do that. You know, it's not a problem. So I got that big drum machine and the nice synths. I put it all together, and I came up with some songs. And in my head, I imagined it would sound like this. Sorry. Yeah. So we've got the big drums going, then we've got the bass line coming in. I like to think big on these things. Kind of came in because I was going to have to put it onto the NES, which sounds like a doorbell. So, just to give you an idea, I've been using keyboards and putting stuff using MIDI, which is what musicians do when they're writing music. But I didn't have the luxury. Because it was a computer, I was going to have to put it in computer code. So here we have the 81 is a C, and it lasts for 0.8. So that little bass line going, that is that piece of code. And there were 4 channels, so I had to do 4 channels as well. And those 4 channels, they only had 1 note, and not one of those channels sounded nice. There was the bass channel, or the saw wave channel. It sounded like an owl on heat. Then there was the noise channel. I mean, you know, it wasn't like the drum machine with nice big beefy sounds. It was very underwhelming. And then there were 2 noise channels, just 2. So I could either make a melody sound half decent or not very nice at all. So this is me working on the said machine. Obviously the hair started to go at that point, you know.
It looked like the Shining.
However, I did learn the importance of only having 4 channels, because when you've only got rubbishy sounding channels and you've got to create something because it's on a video game, you've got to make sure it sounds good. So the drums are really important, the bass is essential. And what you do with the other 2 channels is you learn to suggest chords, which we did. So we're going to put this back, but here it is. This is what it sounded like. started hearing all of the very, very talented Japanese composers who were much better. When you heard a Japanese song on the NES, it just sounded great. Mine sounded terrible. So I had a lot of work to do. And over 3 years, I was really pulling apart how these Japanese composers, who I thought were amazing, and they still are, basically, music has to travel. It has to go from A and it has to go to B. You have to create movement for it to sound nice. So after 3 years, I kind of figured it out, and you just throw everything at it, it'll be fine. So hopefully, Martin, this was Time Lord. This is the same chip 3 years later. For that game was, you know, obviously, yeah, some of the graphics. Sorry,
it doesn't sound like the same console. It sounds like a completely different machine.
Right, there we go. So the thing I had to learn next was that simple melodies connect and complicated details attract. And this was really important for the Super NES, coming on to the Donkey Kong Country stuff, which we're now going to talk about. So this is Super NES. I can remember Tim, our boss, bringing this in, and he said, "Dave, this is going to change your life." And he said, "It's got 8 channels." And you can exactly, it's got 8 channels. But this time, instead of listening to those plinky plonky noises, you've got sample memory. You can sample everything you like. And I thought, brilliant! I'm going to be able to sample all of my sound cards. And then you start dreaming again, like, you know, I'm good at that. And I thought, I could sample my guitar, it'll sound amazing, we'll have like lots of guitar metal in it. I thought I'll sample my drum kit, maybe I'll sample my synths. Then I got stupidly big, thinking, oh, I could sample a string section, or maybe a brass section, maybe even a woodwind section, or even the drums. Maybe even a whole orchestra. We were thinking big. But the reality is, there's only so much you can do. At times you're allowed to the kitchen sink. So I got all these big ideas, but they said, well, you've only got 64K. So to demonstrate how much memory 64K is, I'm now going to play you 1 second's worth of music at CD quality. So this is 44K, 16-bit. If you put a CD on, this is 16-bit music for 1 second. That's right, that's 1 second. Yes, but we only have 64K, and this is 64K's worth of data. One more time, this is it. So I was going to have to create a whole soundtrack using that much data that needed to last 40 minutes. Clearly there was going to be some head scratching going on. And I can remember when I learned this, I went home and got trashed, drank all night, and came back in about 2 weeks later, having thought about how am I going to get 64K to actually make a soundtrack. One of my synths at the time, favourite ones, was called the Wave Station, and what that did is it took a sample like this, but you could only use a tiny fraction of it. So can we have the audio back on? Here we go. So this is a familiar sound from something you might have heard before. Okay, it's actually a tambourine slowed down. Now I can only use a little bit, so that little bit there, and then eventually I get it really small. That's it, and that's what it sounds like. Just like the NES. However, it's called Wave Station, this is the VST. If you take all of those little sounds and you put them together in a different order, and you vary that order, it starts to sound nice. This is what we call Wave Station sounded like. So you can hear all those little waves, they're tiny, but when they play in a sequence like this, it suddenly becomes musical. Now the next sound that I actually just robbed and put in for Donkey Kong Country, and it's when you're in the hive. just using 3 different guitar samples going through it, and a nice pad to smooth it out. So I spent 5 weeks trying to work out how I was going to use this, and the first piece that I used, that method of reconstructing a tune was this one. This is the one from Tropical Freeze, but it was this version of this tune. Which we'll have some graphics in a second. Focus on some of the graphical elements, but we're going to show you what we've been working on, and this game is coming out on the 8th of October, is it? Okay, I've just got to find it, bear with me, talk among yourselves. Okay, Martin, you ready? Playtonic. Coming out on the 8th of October. This is a shameless plug. Pre-order is available now.
All consoles. We've got Switch, PS4, Xbox, and you've got it on Steam.
So Kev's just going to talk about this whilst I load your stuff in now.
So yeah, what we've got here, I don't know if any of you actually played the ukulele one, which was a back up. Great stuff. Yeah, this is what we would call it's not really a sequel, but it's a sort of a spin-off from ukulele, and so we're taking it in a different direction. And the Playtonic Games, what we want to do is try and make sure every game that we release has got some kind of different genre elements put in there. So we've got a combination of above view, map view exploration, and we've got obviously what looks like a very similar sort of familiar Donkey Kong style horizontal scrolling sort of game there. So it's a lot more polished than the first game. We're a very tiny team when we did the first game, but now we've grown a little bit more, and we're just a bunch of old dogs really that used to work at Rare Limited, and now we've put together that, so we're quite excited about that. So hopefully you'll check that out next week. So I'm hoping that Dave's going to be able to play for me now, or play for you guys. Do you want to play the music first, and then you want to skip the player? Yeah. Okay. This will tell you a little bit about myself first. So cover your ears. It's a little bit noisy, but you might enjoy it. It's a little bit of a show reel I put together.
So this is Kev singing.
Discovering video games. My first experience with computer graphics. I hope you can all see it okay. So if I tap Dave on the shoulder each time, he'll magically take us to the next slide. So I just did it there, so let's go to slide 2. So where did it all start? I'm sure as it did for most of you, we've got the handheld consoles, which I'll point to this screen so I can see it more clearly. We've got handheld games like Scramble, Earth Invaders, Pac-Man, and so what used to happen a long time ago, I was very into nature, and I would sit in my back garden and I would be studying all of this wildlife that I got in my pond, which was frogs, toads, yeah, toads, they were there, all toads, and I used to sit there for hours watching those, and then one day I went to the market store and I saw one of these things, and I took it home with me. My mum and dad, they bought it for me, and I was hooked on it ever since. So I started coming in out of the rain and just played on these guys, and so it took an awful lot of my time, and it probably destroyed my childhood really. So have the next slide, Dave, please. So then, and then my next step was obviously we went on from the handheld games, and if some of you remember this fantastic sound effect. That was the audio that we used to listen to when we played games like Pong, or the clone Pong games. And then we went from to when we got the ZX81. And ZX81 was my favourite computer because it taught me to program on it, so it gave me a bit of an understanding on how computer software worked. But my machine had a fancy keyboard on it. I bought that second hand and put it on. It looked like a dustbin lid really, but it's it's okay. And then we moved on from that machine over to the Acorn Electron, which was a fantastic machine for programming on. One of my favourites, but it just wasn't really cool. And I always wanted the cool machine, which was a Commodore 64, which had a fantastic SID chip. And anybody fan of Commodore 64 there? Yeah? Last Ninja, all of that music by Rob Hubbard, best musician in the world on computer games. Okay. But yeah, so and then I bought the Commodore 64, but it was a bit too late, and I sort of missed the boat with that one. And then if we go to the next slide. So what happened next? I was so into the video games that I was faced with a dilemma, because as I said, I was into nature and animals, and I really wanted to become a vet, but animals stink, let's face it. So this is my dog here, it's Dude. I've censored him just to make it family friendly, you know. And so I was just split with a decision whether or not to continue to make games like The Last Ninja and stuff like that, or become a vet. So I sent a few adverts off to some of the papers, some applications and some graphics off, and one of them found its way to Rare Limited. I didn't know who Rare Limited were, but they weren't very far away from me, so just go to the next one. So I still got to work with animals in a weird kind of way. I say animals, there's Diddy Kong, that's one of my horrible creations. And so I put Dude down, not literally, but I decided to move on and get into computer games after all, so here's the next one. So yeah, Rare Limited was actually based in a place called Twycross, and nobody knows where Twycross is in the UK. It's just pretty much in the centre of the country, and it's a sleepy little village, but it's very, very famous for its zoo. And it's very, very famous for its monkeys, part of its zoo. For years and years they used the monkeys for the TV adverts, didn't they, Dave? They had chimpanzees and they'll be drinking tea, Thai food on the TV time. PG tips. PG tips.
Also, it's worth mentioning that where we were based in Twycross is in deepest Warwickshire, 20 miles away from civilization. We couldn't escape it. Once you were there in the building, you were there.
Development country. So yeah, I mean it was quite useful. As you can see, I've censored some of the animals there, probably being a little bit rude, but it's called an ultra combo there, so I don't know what the tortoises are doing, but some sort of aerobics there. But yeah, so it was very useful to have the zoo, because obviously later on we did the Donkey Kong Country, and we had to go up to the zoo and we sort of take notes and study and film the animals and try and get ideas for their animation. But
yeah. Also, I took Martin, he was one of the sound engineers that I used to work with, and we went to the zoo hoping to get some sound effects, because we were next to the zoo. And you go there and they're bored stupid, and you go around with your microphones and there's nothing. And then all of a sudden they come around with the food, and then every single animal in the building is shouting and screaming, so it just didn't work out for the sound effects.
It was similar for the graphics really, because when we went there, most of the animals just sat like this. There was no animation, so when we got back, we had to say, yeah, we've been up to, we took an afternoon off to go to the zoo to try and convince Tim and Chris, we need to go to the zoo to study these animals. And we came back with just lots and lots of stationary animals, just sitting like this, whatever. And so we get back and we crawl up and down the corridor, pretend to be monkeys, and we just filmed ourselves eventually. And so the animation for Donkey Kong is me going up and down the corridor, or Steve Mails, or some of the other guys worked, and we just basically put our own stuff together and ate a lot of bananas.
It has to be said that the sound effects as well, the oohs and the it's all human as well. Everyone is involved.
Most of the sound effects that we actually produced at Rare were done by the programmers or the graphics guys or the testers. Anyone wanted to step up to the mic and make some noise, really. So, yep, next slide. So yeah, what happened with my parents, they took me to this interview, and they dropped me off at this old farmhouse, and I didn't know who Rare was, I'd never heard of them. And so I was greeted by this blonde guy upstairs in his office, and he says, "Hi, you're Kevin," and shook my hand, and he says, "Yeah, we actually used to be a company called Ultimate Playtonic Games," and he pulled out this huge piece of art. And it was in like a reel of all of these original airbrushed artworks for all of the covers from all of the Ultimate Playtonic Games. Everybody a fan of the Ultimate games? Saber Wolf, Jetpack, you know these on the ZX Spectrum?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so instantly I looked at it and I thought, this is where I want to be. But I didn't know anything about making computer graphics, just my little bits. I'd written a little bit of code at home and created some graphics on the Acorn Electron on the 64 and sent it to them, but I didn't know what Tim was doing, so he had to kind of show me the ropes. So Go to the next slide, please. So yeah, I started off with a few simple games like Hollywood Squares there and Wheel of Fortune, which were basically just TV quiz shows that were popular in the US. And I didn't have any idea or any experience with coming up with characters, so I just drew all of my friends from school in the Hollywood Squares, and we were getting faxes from the US all the time saying, "Daz looks too gross, can you remove his zits?" and that kind of thing. So I said, "Well, he's got zits, but this is how it wasn't." So we would get feedback from the US telling that these graphics are progressing nicely, and we moved on from that. We took up a lot of licensed products such as Beetlejuice and Nightmare on Elm Street, Roger Rabbit, a few conversions there of California Games. I think Dave did the music for all of these games. And there's Cobra Triangle there, which was one of the first original games that I worked on. Also, and I did a little bit of stuff on Snake Rattle Roll, which I think was a really underrated game, because I think it's a fantastic game. It was on a tiny cartridge, taking up very little memory. And you know, it should have done a lot better than it did, but had fantastic music.
That piece of music, I should know, there's a story behind it. I thought we'd finished the game at this point. I'd done all the music, so I decided to go out, having finished it, and get slaughtered again. There's a theme there. So I crawled in really late, probably at 4 in the morning, completely drunk. It was a phone call, and Tim saying, "Oh, we need one more piece of music. One more." I said, I've got possibly. I said, "I can't even drive over. I'm smashed. You know, it's not going to happen." So they came and picked me up, and I'm still completely inebriated, under the influence. So that piece was written whilst I was completely out of it.
And if you look at some of the game's graphics, you'll see that the standard of my work also improves over time, but that was when I gave up my drinking habit.
Yeah, so after that, I wrote the piece. I came in on the Monday morning. I said, "I'm really sorry about yesterday. If I'd have known you hadn't finished, I wouldn't have gone out drinking." And I said, because I'd listened to it, and I didn't think it was very nice at all. But I said, it was too late. You can't change it. It's gone off, and that was it. So it's a good tune. It's a good tune. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
So those were the early NES games, and then of course the NES got replaced by the Super Nintendo. And so it was at this point that we decided we need to have something for ourselves at Rare, because everything was a licensed product. It was a TV show or something like that. So Tim said to me, "Can you come up with something that is gonna, you know, just be our character? We want to go for the chocolate bars, the bedspreads, the lampshades. We want our toys. We want something with this total Rare merchandise." And I didn't mention earlier on, I was a total fan of Bruce Lee and all of the martial arts movies when I was a kid. And I always wanted to do a fighting game. And so I said, well, I'm going to take the toads that I used to sit and watch in my back garden, and I'm going to make them ninjas. But obviously we couldn't call them Ninja Toads, because there was another character set out there already that everybody knows about, which was a fantastic set of characters. So we decided to call them the Amphibians. And I drew the amphibians, and I put them on this lily pad, and they're all sort of surfing towards the screen like this. And Tim said, "You can't call them the amphibians." So we came up with a few different names. There was another one. I remember there was another game I did actually. It was like a 3D game, and it was called Vitor. And it was basically just first-person shooter, but with so many different concepts. But I mean, this one, Battletoads, the name stuck. And Tim went ahead and he airbrushed the front cover to the Battletoads that you see there at the bottom on the NES. And then I was so pleased when we were working very heavily with some of the companies in America. One of the companies was called Trade West, and they had the license for Double Dragon, which was a huge favourite of mine in the arcades. And so when we managed to get the permission to link the Battletoads with the Double Dragon characters, I was over the moon. So some of the artwork there, I drew the characters, and I also did the graphics in the game. And it's a bit me, and everything, but there was only a very small graphics department at the time, and so you'd sometimes work on 2 or 3 games at once and also have to do the artwork for the box, but that's just the way it was. We're a small company. So the next slide. Along came the 3D graphics. So Tim then decided we wanted to experiment with some new technology, and so what we did, after watching movies like, has anyone seen The Abyss? I just remember the shot directed by James Cameron, and it's got the water creature that comes out there. And he was showing me all of these pictures, and we can do this, we can do this. And so how are we going to do that on Super Nintendo? And while I was, I got some time to work on other games, and so we were experimenting with other products. I was making the Battletoads coin-op game, and I got one of these new machines, which I was really looking to have, and I started experimenting and rendering things that would fit into just a couple of frames of graphics. And so these balls that you see here, they were rendered, and they've got a checker pattern, and so there was about 4 frames that the actual ball rotated, and it looked like it was a 3D object. And so we put those into Battletoads. And I also put the spaceship that you sit in on the shoot 'em up level, and I just sort of tilted it this way and tilted it that way, and it was converted into like 15 colours. And as soon as it started moving like that, it looked 3D. So we knew that the idea would work, and so then we went on to start making a fully rendered game, which was called Brute Force, which was eventually Killer Instinct. So when we did Killer Instinct, we were working on the demo, and if anyone remembers on the Genesis Aladdin, Sega were boasting that we'd got Disney animators and it was going to look fantastic, and the film was a huge blockbuster. Nintendo came to us and said, we need something which is going to knock this out of the water. It's going to look really cool. And then completely coincidentally, we were using this 3D technology. And they came over and we showed them a demo of the Brute Force fighting game. And they went away, and they came back, and then Tim came back out of the meeting later. They went out for a meal, and then the next day Tim said they love it, and actually they want us to do a game with one of their characters using our 3D technology, and they're going to give us all of the technology that we need and all the hardware we need to do it. And they also ended up buying a stake in the company, and they supplied us with so many of these machines so that we could produce Donkey Kong. They sent us a fax, and they said, we'd like you to take this character that we obviously own, and we want you to do what you can with it and make it work with this 3D technology. And so you can see there's Shigeru Miyamoto's original Donkey Kong character, and we were going to just produce a very sort of Mario-esque 2D scrolling platform game. And so I kind of designed him to look a little bit like a cube, because I was still thinking about how I can easily fit the character into the limitations and keep it very square. And then we ended up with this character here, which was fully rendered, and as you know, when it was shrunk down into sort of 32 by 32 pixels and it was fully animated, the whole thing looked magic. So we were really pleased we did that, and Nintendo loved it. So okay, we're gonna Diddy Kong Racing. Anybody remember Diddy Kong Racing? I'm going to move along really quickly now so we can get it wrapped up. Yeah, it used to be called Program 64. We changed the name. We changed it to Diddy Kong Racing because Banjo-Kazooie wasn't finished on time. That was meant to come out, but fortunately we were nearly done with Diddy Kong Racing, and Nintendo said, yeah, we'll put that out there, but we'll put it out there with one of our characters, which was actually my Diddy Kong character, which we did in Donkey Kong Country. And so we shoved him on there, and I was really angry about it because I wanted Timber to be the main character, but then when Nintendo then said, oh, you've got a million guarantee though. So we said, okay, we'll put Diddy Kong Racing and we'll put it out there, and it did really well. And I love Whizpig, which was the character which was the main villain on there, and I think he should make a comeback one day. So again, we did a lot of the voices. I did a Whizpig, which was, looky here, a little worm, and all of the stuff from Dinosaur Planet too. So we're going to put that one on next, and I'll quickly wrap up with that one, I think. Yeah, Dinosaur Planet was originally the spin-off from Diddy Kong Racing, and Timber the Tiger was the main character. And then we decided, no, Timber, he's not the right character for this, so we decided to make him a wolf. And we based it on the character Saber Wolf, which was an early Sinclair Spectrum game. And then Nintendo looked at it again and said, this is too close to Star Fox. Why don't we join this thing together and build a new franchise, and we'll make it Star Fox Adventures. And that's Tricky there, and that was my voice for Tricky, and it really annoys most people. It annoys me, it hurts my ears, it makes them bleed. Perfect Dark Zero, that was the last game I worked on at Rare. I've been at Rare for, I don't know, 18, 19 years since I was the age, just turning 16, so I needed a break from video games. And if you could just, I decided to do the rock star thing, and I didn't get very far, but I did actually join a band called Voodoo Johnson, and we were actually set to support Europe. The final countdown! Europe. It's a Swedish rock band, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I left the band, as you do, and so I didn't get to support them at all. And then we did a little bit more, and then did some more graphics for people, and then if we go to the next slide, I joined Playtonic Games. And these guys did ukulele, as you know, we've spoken about. And then, after that, we released Ukulele and the Impossible Lair, which is the next slide. So again, as we say, this is out next week, is it? The 8th next week? Whenever the 8th of October is. And then finally, a little plug, Salamandos! Come on! Salamandos, come on. We'll talk a little bit about Salamandos. Do you want to explain what Salamandos is to the guys?
So obviously, Kevin and I, we've worked together for 30 years now, and in all that time, we've never actually done a joint product. So I'm bringing out a new album and art concept type project. So Kev's doing the graphics, he's also singing on the same album, and it's basically our homage to the games that we've worked on over the last 30 years.
And we haven't asked him yet, but we know he's going to get involved, and we're going to ask some of the other celebrity voices from Rare to be involved on this, and so I've got a feeling Chris Marlowe, the great almighty Pooh, is going to be the villain character in this. So look out, it's going to be like a musical on paper, but you can listen to it. It's going to be like, remember the War of the Worlds album you used to buy in the 70s, you listen to it and the music came on and fantastic graphics. It's going to be like that, but better. So,
video game style. So
yeah,
that'll be out in 2020, and also this is the initial design. We've got t-shirts here, we've got posters. Feel free, because these will probably be very limited edition.
Yeah, we've only made a handful of t-shirts, and these characters are going to change, so you want to grab one of these t-shirts while they can, because things are going to change quite a bit, and you won't be able to get hold of one of these soon. So it'll be worth literally pence in a few years' time. So
absolutely. So
it's an investment.
Q&A.
Thank you for listening. Anyway, thank you.
Amazing stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being interested.
We have a couple of minutes left. If there's any questions from the audience, raise your hand. We'll start here.
So David, what do you prefer? The challenges of the 90s or like the endless possibilities of today? What do you prefer?
That's a very good question. I was asked that question only 2 days ago by some very nice folk over in San Francisco. I like the challenge because when you're on the same hardware platform, and I think it's the same for graphics as well with Kev, if everybody's working on the same format, the same limitations, it's fun to try and beat all of your competitors and try and do something different, which is what we did with Donkey Kong Country. But when you do anything, you're up against the whole world, because anybody can buy a copy of a music program or a graphics program and do something. So I like the challenge to stay ahead. You've really got to keep on your toes and do something that's appealing to people. But obviously, anyone can do anything at this point, so it's a different challenge. Thank you.
Both Cobra Triangle and Snake Rock and Roll using kind of fake 3D graphic. Is that using? It looks very good.
Yeah, that's right. What we used to do, we had a video camera, a small camcorder, and we'd have a model boat, or it was actually also used in RC Pro Am. It was something that was devised by Tim Stamper, and what we would do was put if you can imagine this is a boat, or it's a very bad boat, we put this underneath the camera and we would turn it and turn it and turn it and turn it, and take lots of different pictures of it, and then we would put it underneath some graph paper and trace the images, so we would basically digitise them by hand, all of the frames. And so yeah, and Snake Rattle and Roll, I think some of the objects that were moving around on there were done in the same fashion. Cobra Triangle, certainly, the boat, it was set up in a sort of a 3D sort of gyroscope, and we rotated different angles, because if you know the boat, when it spins, when it goes round, it banks, and it pitches, and so it looks really sort of three-dimensional. But yeah, that was Tim being really ahead of his time. So, good question.
we need to set up for the Swedish Championship in Pong that's next in the schedule. But the guys, they're going to stay outside here. You find the t-shirts, you find the posters, have more questions, come up to them, ask them, have a chat with them. Once again, tremendous honor to have you over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us, everybody. Thank you. Hopefully we'll see you next year.